Hi guys, this is Jeff Gamble, Indianapolis, Indiana, and this is the MLM Lunchtime Leadership Show. Just getting rolling here. I appreciate everybody for jumping on, and we are going to roll through the law of intuition today. Bess is here and watching. Max is with us. What's happening, sir? Happy Friday. How was that movie? Francis is on for a second. What's happening? John's here. Hello.
Hi, everybody.
The scratch.
I'm trying to get intuition. I was hoping that I could get it like this because I heard that you need leadership to succeed and that you need intuition for leadership. So I'm hoping this thing will give me intuition. And it's a head tingler, really. It's a massage head tingler. But maybe we'll learn some more tips today, too, about intuition and leadership. I am Bess McCarty of MLM Millionaire Club, School for Network Marketers, and also called the Shrink of MLM. And this is Jeffrey David Gamble of my Leadership Network, also a certified John Maxwell trainer. So today is number 8 of the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell. Today is number 8, the law of intuition. Let's see what we learn. If you're watching the replay, we'd love if you write that in so that we can thank you for watching. And if you know people who would benefit from learning about this, we'd love if you tag them. We'd love if you share. Some of you have been sharing this in groups, and we really appreciate that. Our feedback is that our content's really, really solid. So people love hearing, seeing the live when it's shared in groups with them. So we appreciate that. Our purpose is to help people grow, to educate, empower, and equip entrepreneurs and create independent servant leaders. Might want to grab a pen and paper. It's going to be a lot of goodies coming out here, I know. And so, Jeff, let's learn what you have to teach.
Okay, guys, what we're going to do is we're going to roll through law number 8, law of intuition. Appreciate everybody for jumping on here. Leaders evaluate everything with a leadership bias. Now, what does that mean? Welcome, Becky and Wendy. We got a bunch of people joining us here. Thanks for jumping on. Janice. It is going to be a good day. Lori's with us. Hopefully out voting again, because that's always nice. I did see your video the other day, Lori. That was awesome. So learning the law of intuition, it says leaders evaluate everything with that leadership bias. What does that mean? Well, you have to look at everything from how it's coming at you from a leadership bias. Most of us do is we like to evaluate everything from a us point of view. How is this going to benefit us? Now, how does leadership bias or leadership intuition? It's really about the benefit of the team. It's really about the benefit of the group. How does this affect everybody, not how does this affect me? Unfortunately, we're built as self-centered creatures simply because we're built under a pretense that we're trying to protect ourselves. So the law of intuition, or the internal rule of intuition is protect yourself. We were born kind of outside and then moved from caves and then into groups and tribes and then eventually into cities and neighborhoods. But our underlying basic human instinct is survival. So we're always going to immediately evaluate everything from a protection, how does this affect me? But from a leadership standpoint, you want it to look at everything from how does it affect everybody else? So that's something you have to sit down and consciously kind of put into play. Not everyone is intuitive in every area of leadership, but everyone possesses some sort of intuition. So each one of these laws, there are intuitions about it. How is this affecting the group? How is this overall going to come across? How is this going to overall help people? Sometimes you have to be around someone who is intuitive in one of these areas to pick up some of those things. In fact, everyone's usually intuitive in the area of their strength. So if you're happen to be really good about dealing with people, maybe better than vision. And I typically will see this because most people who are kinesthetic are very good with people, and they pick up on internal things about people. For instance, sometimes I would walk into a room and I'd be so focused on the goal, the vision of building the room bigger, I would miss the fact that somebody said hi to me in a different way. Why is that? Because my strength usually would lie in how, the vision of what we're trying to do, or maybe the the presentation and the energy and different things about the room. And the room needs to be set at a certain temperature. For those of you who don't know, when you're actually at a meeting, there is a degree of where you should have the meeting to keep the excitement level in the room. There's also a standpoint where you're going to pass this certain line, we're going to put everybody to sleep. The music's important. You know, one of the things is, you know, you don't start out a meeting, unfortunately, with how is everyone? That's actually the worst way to start out a meeting, but you see most meetings start out that way. How is everybody? You don't want to say, how is everybody? Because if everybody's bad, they're going to immediately say, well, it's bad right now. I don't feel really good. And that's what they're thinking about as you start your meeting. You know, hey guys, I'm so excited you made it here. You know, thank goodness. For all the other people that didn't make it here, who are going to miss this event, who are going to miss out on the information, who are going to miss out on the timing of what's going on. It puts people in a totally different mood as opposed to, hey, how is everybody? Because if you just walked out of a bad situation, what you're thinking about is that bad situation. So it's important. Chris is with us. What's happening? So you have to look at what is your strength. Everyone's intuitive. So this doesn't go to just one person. Where I would walk by certain things and miss them. The great thing is I surrounded myself with a group of people who had strengths I didn't. So they would point out, hey, did you know so-and-so is going through this? Hey, did you know so-and-so has an issue with this, or so-and-so has an issue with that? I would have to sit down and figure those things out. Chris, what's going on? So living the law of intuition. It says the law of intuition depends much more than just the facts that present themselves. They're in the environment in which it happens. They're the context in which it happens. So just certain things that you have to pick up. And again, it has to be about the group, not the individual. That's the main point of the law of intuition, is how does this affect everybody, not just how does this affect me? It is fact plus instinct plus conditions. So you're going to use the facts of what's going on, but you have to use the surrounding, the context, what's happening, how people are feeling, what's going on. Just because everybody showed up on time doesn't mean the meeting's great. You know, some people miss what's going on inside the meeting. You know, if people are talking in the back about stuff that doesn't matter or the wrong subject matter, you know, what typically happens is people come into a meeting and they'll initially tell you about, hey, how was your day? Well, if their day was completely terrible, you know, think about how that works, you know, instead of, hey, what can we help you with today? You know, do you have, what guests do you have? Who do I need to be introduced to? You know, those are different questions. Again, intuition, building an organization rather than being in an organization, participating. Who are you determines what you see. You know, your personality. So if your personality is very vision oriented, it's very structured, it's very building, that's going to be very different than Jesse's with us, what's happening. That's going to be a very different case than, you know, just participating on the level of showing up to build, showing up with your vision, showing up with your dream, showing up to, hey, what needs to get, and this is something, what needs to get done. As the leader of a meeting, you have to be thinking what needs to get done, and in the order of when it's going to get done and are we on time. Those are certain things that you have to keep in touch with. You don't have time for all the other stuff. Benny, what's going on? Just jumped on with us. So who you are determines what you see. If you want to see more, you have to become more. And that's what this training is about, is learning these different laws. And I mean, imagine being able to scan through your head these different laws of what's important. Walk slowly through the crowd. Law of addition. Who do I need to meet? That's one of the questions that I was taught from one of my mentors. Who do I need to meet tonight? And who do I need to set an appointment with tonight? Tonight, not tomorrow. Do an evaluation, you know, get a list. You know, I heard from a very amazing mentor at the beginning of every meeting. At the beginning of every meeting, before anybody came, now this was predates cell phones, he would actually get a list of all of the guests that were supposed to be in the room, who they were, what they did, where they were from, and he would actually scan through to find out who showed up and walk through, and he would be able to meet them. Hey, you're so-and-so. I mean, imagine how cool it would be as a leader to show up in a meeting. You are just, this guy's edified on stage. He does this amazing presentation. He walks up and says, hey, Bess, how are you? You know, I know that, you know, Lori or, you know, Jesse had brought you out tonight, and you were taking a look at this because, and you've got a background in, you know, body mind therapy. Rich is with us. What's happening? I mean, imagine the effect of how that you know, how that would, what that would do if they instantly knew who you were and what's going on. So again, the intuition of paying attention to what's going on in the room, it might not be your strength. It certainly wasn't mine when I first got in. So if you go back to the lesson of the law of the lid, review your score on the qualities of a leader. So if you review your score on the qualities of the leader and you kind of know what's going on with the qualities of the leader, you can have a really good idea of what to do and how to do, in particular with, you know, with your strength. You also have to look at your weaknesses. What are you not good at? And that's where you start evaluating who on my team is good at these other things. Who on my team is good at picking this stuff up? And let me see if I can help out and, you know, have them help me on some of these things that I can't get to everything. Do things that will increase those qualities. Doing things that will increase those qualities is find out, you know, how you can involve yourself in these things. In the area of profession, look for ways to do it better. In the area of your profession, so in the area of direct sales, how can you do what you're doing better? How can you be more positive, more focused on what's going on, leave the garbage at the door, you know, when you happen to be in an event? Now we're talking about, you know, in particular being in an event, the intuition of an event. There's the intuition of a sit down. You know, the intuition of a sit down is you have to evaluate the place you're going to present. This is something I do when I walk in. I evaluate the place when I'm doing a sit down, face to face. And here's the thing, I want the person facing me, but not facing the activity of the, let's say, of the restaurant or of the place. Meaning if we're sitting, that person would be placing me and the wall would be behind. If you're sitting facing the person, but the person's facing the door of everybody walking in and out, their attention is always going to go to the movement of the door. A lot of people would probably never pick that up in 100 years, because if it's not part of your law of intuition, basically controlling your surroundings, is it going to be like that? I look for noise factor. I'm not going to sit right next to the grinder in a Starbucks, you know, where they grind all the, or they use the blender, you know, because once they turn that on, it's very hard to hear. It breaks concentration. Again, you know, sitting in the right place, where I'm going to have them sit, how I'm going to introduce myself. These are all things like at a sit down. So we've done meeting, we've done sit down. Again, being on the phone, you know, making phone calls. They said, you know, find a quiet spot where everybody isn't sitting, where everybody isn't coming in. You know, if that's where the dog goes to the window and barks, probably a bad idea. And I've heard it all. You know, I've watched people try to make calls, and I've called people where their dog's barking. They've got their kid in one hand and they're on the phone in another trying to do an interview. The kid's crying and screaming, here, take this. Or they're in line checking out. Oh, yeah. I'm listening. Yeah, can I have a Big Mac, fries, a Coke? No, I don't want any special sauce. Or they're ordering a drink at Starbucks. And I hang up on those people, for those of you who don't know. And I'm not talking about you who's involved. I'm talking about when I'm prospecting. And I say, hey, are you available? You know, especially on a lead call, hey, are you available for some time right now? And they're doing 100 other things. It just tells me what kind of a person this is. This is not a person who's focused. This is not a person who's really looking. This is not a person. If you're not going to pay attention when somebody's going to call you through a lead system, they're not going to pay attention when they're in the business either. So that's just how I evaluate it. You know, people are like, how do you move through people so fast? I have a standard, a rule of what I, you know, of how I gauge what I'm doing. So that's what I have for the first part. So we're also going to go into 3 levels of leadership intuition and then how to develop it. But before I do that, I'm going to turn this over to Bess and get her thoughts on the law of intuition.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. I think my favorite so far takeaway of what you said was to know the guests at the meeting beforehand and a little bit about them, because when you role played that with me, I felt wonderful. So I'd love the other people to feel wonderful. Did you guys get a takeaway so far? I would love to hear what they are. And if you have any questions about this, leadership or network marketing, please type those in, because we'll be taking questions shortly, answering questions and also sharing your insights too. I love the likes and the loves you guys are sending, and we'd love if you like, comment, or share if you're getting value here, and know other people. They'll thank you, I think. We've been told our content is so good, and so I think they will appreciate that. So I used to live in San Diego, and the football team there was the Chargers. And a while back, it was Stan Humphries, who won the starting quarterback position. And why? He wasn't the biggest and he didn't lift the most weights in the weight room, but he could read a situation on the field and call the right play and pull it off. So he led a fairly weak San Diego team to the Super Bowl one year. All core pro quarterbacks have this physical talent and abilities. There isn't a huge amount of difference between them. So what makes one of them get into the Hall of Fame? The difference is the principle of intuition. These that stand out above the rest can often see things that others can't and make changes and move before other people even know what's happening. So I'll be sharing a little bit about intuition. Is it something that we're born with, that we can develop? How do you get this magical thing that's sort of able to see things ahead of time and act on them? A lot of people say that, it's in our head, like my little demo with that, but really, it's in our guts. As a body-mind therapist for 30 years, I thought, oh my goodness, a lot of people try to rationalize or think their way into this type of thing called intuition, but it's really a gut level feeling. What does your gut say about this? And what does your gut say is needed in any situation? Because body-mind therapy says there's three brains. There's the intellect, there's the heart, the intellect center, the heart center, and the body. The body is in the guts. So that's very grounding, knows what's needed, and can do what's needed in a moment. And I'll share a little bit more about how to develop that shortly. I'd like to hear more what Jeff has to share.
So there's three levels of intuition. Those who naturally understand leadership. So there's certain people who are just going to grasp this concept. Hi, Christina. Hi, Chris. How are you? Just joining us. Those who naturally understand leadership are just going to get some of these principles. They're just able. They're sometimes visual. They've worked on the auditory. They've worked on the kinesthetic. So they're going to see the three different kinds of situations going on all at the same time. And for those of you who don't know, there's three ways of learning. There's three ways of looking at stuff. The visual, what you can see, the auditory, what you can hear, and the kinesthetic, what you can feel. So you have three different variables in a room, in a setting. Now, it also depends on the consciousness of the person. If you're wrapped up in yourself, if you're wrapped up in your own problems and your own things, and your emotions are, high going on about something else, it's going to be very hard to see what's going on, or feel what's going on in the room. But when you're able to clear yourself, when you're able to present yourself in a way where, you're able to take all this in, sometimes you're able to hear things that you wouldn't have heard. You're able to see things you wouldn't have seen, and you're able to feel things you wouldn't have felt. So therefore, you're able to grasp the concept of what's actually happening in an event, meeting, in a situation. And there are certain people who are very, very good at all three of these. It's stuff I had to work on. I was the visual, like I said, but I didn't have the kinesthetic. But now that I have people around me who have that ability, they're able to share and be like, I think we need to spend more time with this person. I think we need to sit down with this person more one-on-one. They're not grasping it in a big meeting. We need to be more personal about it. The second, those who can be nurtured to understand leadership. Again, getting around somebody who understands these principles, they can teach this stuff to you. It sometimes takes a while. It took a while for certain people to sit me down and say, hey, this is what you're missing. And funny enough, I knew I was missing something. I remember actually sitting down with a friend, that he was more than just a mentor, but became a friend of mine through, these meetings that we'd have. And I would actually tell him, I said, look, I know I'm missing something. I've recruited this many people, but what I don't have the ability to do is this. And I'm having a hard time breaking through. And then we went over what I was doing, and he's like, oh my gosh, you're missing the most important thing. He's like, if you can bring somebody on board, this should be something easy to do. Here's how I look at it and how I do it. And just that by itself was just like so eye-opening. I was like, oh my gosh, that makes it so much easier to figure out. So being around somebody, you can teach these lessons to certain people. The last type of person, unfortunately, is those who will never understand leadership. And John says, there are a certain group of people, because they're so into, again, and I think this is part of the basic human instinct, that there are certain people, because they're so internalizing all of their problems, and they're so focused on everything that's going on with them, they seem to forget where they're at. I don't know if you've ever seen this where, and I've seen this, at weddings, and I've seen this at, certain big events, somebody's getting an award, and somebody's so tied up in themselves, they're trying to tell you their sob story about how bad their life is. Meanwhile, there's an event going on that they're completely missing. And they're taking other people's attention away from somebody walking the stage, or somebody promoting, or somebody, doing some great thing. They'll want to talk to you about all their issues in the middle of probably one of the number one person that somebody else can see. Like, oh yes, finally this guy's on stage, or this girl's on stage. I can finally hear exactly what they said. And that's when they start in with the, well, what happened to me was, and it doesn't even seem like, I'm like, are you conscious of where you're physically at right now? It's like they're on another planet, just dealing with themselves inside their bubble. So there's some people you can't teach this stuff to, simply because timing might be wrong. But some people will never get it because they're just not conscious of anything else that's going on in their life except for what's going on in their life. Unfortunately, you'll have, if you build your business big enough, you'll have all these people. Every time you go to a group or a team, you're going to see all these people in a meeting. And what your job is to evaluate what's going on and figure out, who's playing the game with you for real, who's completely understanding the 3 levels of what's going on all the time. And you might not get that in one meeting. You might not be able to show up once and gather the information of who's understanding what's going on. Develop intuition by developing your thinking. Research your profession. Research your profession. There's so many people, and especially because we're talking about MLM and direct sales, there's so many people who are ignorant of the industry because they sit in their meeting with blinders on. They sit in their meeting with earmuffs on. They sit in the meeting with like external noise, and they don't hear anything else. Now, it's not bad to be focused on what you're doing, but if you don't know anything about the industry that surrounds you, that can be damaging. Here's why. Because if you want to go recruit somebody from outside your company, just by saying my company's great, my company's great, my company's great, my products are great, my company's great, my comp plan's great. Do you understand that every company says that inside their meeting? There's not a company that says, well, we looked and we're really 54th on the list. So we're only about 54th as good as everybody else. There's 53 companies that are absolutely positively better than us in comp plan. 54 companies that are absolutely better than us in products and service. No company says that. All companies say we're the best. So just repeating the lingo that you're told inside your meeting or told inside your call, you want to be smart enough to evaluate and understand the industry. How did the industry start? Who started it? Why did they start it? Who are some of the great companies that are involved in your industry, just to understand what's going on. So understand what? Understand the profession that you're in. Next, render a plan that's going to be best for you. Render a plan that's going to be best for you. Certain people have weird conditions. We had this certain company we were in, and no names, that I was in when I first started. And they said, well, all you need to do is you need to take, and I don't have a DVD with me. Well, I can use this one. It was like a DVD pack. This is actually Harry Potter, so you can't hand this out and recruit people. Well, you probably could nowadays. I don't know if there's a company for Harry Potter, but they would say, hey, go and hand this out. The problem is I recruited a couple people that were in a town in the middle of Oklahoma. The nearest Walmart was 45 minutes away. The nearest gas station was 35 minutes away. And his town, there were only like 17 people. So think about this. He gets on a call every single week, and he's told to hand out a bunch of DVDs to the people who are around him. He worked in a warehouse. He worked in a warehouse with the same 12 people for over 10 years. So he knew those 12 people really well. Here's what's crazy. That guy recruited half of the people in his company. This was years ago. Half. So he's like, well, I just told everybody to get together at Denny's. He's like, and I just put somebody else on the phone. They presented to him. 4 of the people signed up right there. 2 of them said, yeah, it sounds good. And then the other shift that went on the rest of the day, he's like, I got with them later. But this guy was able to personally recruit about 12 people in a pretty short period of time. But he's like, hey, they keep telling me to hand out this DVD thing. So you have to be intuitive and think, okay, where is this guy at? Where does he live? I was like, well, how often do you get to town? He's like, once a month. I was like, wow. I was like, you know what? You're going to have to do most of this over the phone. So you have to be intuitive about what's going on and render a plan that's right for you and render a plan that's right for other people. Sometimes the process sometimes isn't set up for a guy like that, but that guy can do it. If you have a dream, the facts don't count. That was one of the things one of my leadership taught. If the dream is big enough, the facts don't count. You'll find a way around the problem. Don't go to the problem and amplify it. Go to the problem and find a way around it. Build a bridge over it. Build a bridge around it. Find the crossing. Find the path. Last, rehearse the play. Rehearse the plan. Rehearse the play or rehearse the plan. Whatever you plan to do, make sure you're doing it on a regular basis so you get good at it. It says once you have a burning desire and you live with purpose of that desire, decisions come quickly and easily and seldom ever change your mind. That's Napoleon Hill. So one thing that you'll learn about successful people is successful people make decisions usually very quickly and change their mind almost never. And if you find unsuccessful people will jump into 100 things, change their mind regularly, and it takes forever for them to make a decision. Well, I don't know, should I, shouldn't I? And here's the thing, because they don't have exactly where they're going and exactly what they're going to do, and they don't have the rules set up, they actually go out and survey a big group of people. Well, I'm thinking about doing something again. What do you think? Well, you've been in 10 things. Is this really a good idea for you? You know, and that's what they're getting the feedback from. And they're like, well, I don't know. I'm just trying to decide the right thing to do. I'm not really sure. Rosemary's with us. What's happening? So these are just things that happen to people that I see when they're out and about. I'm just kidding. I got 3 calls from India the other day, and I was like, India, yeah, I was looking for that call from India about, you know, the IRS. I'm just kidding. So, because that thing's been out there. Leading others to the law of intuition. Listen for the following that indicates the opportunity to teach this law. I kind of know in my gut I need to, you know, fill in the blank. I kind of know that I need to be out talking to more people, but I just can't be out talking to more people. This is where I think what Bess does is so good, to be able to interject and say, what's stopping you? What's going through your head at this point? What are you telling yourself is going to happen? Because, you know, as Tony Robbins said, the world around us is happening to everybody, but 2 people can see the exact same situation. And because of how we evaluate that situation, our set of laws, our set of rules, and our past, we will actually create a story of what's going to happen. And they're 2 completely different directions. The same person can see the same thing and be like, the reason this happened to me is so that way I can push forward. And the other person will say, the reason this happened to me is so that way I quit. It's so wild that people can see the exact same thing, sit in the same room, be in the same meeting, hear the exact same message, but think 2 totally different things. And that's, you know, a mindset thing. That's an emotional thing. Some people have emotional blocks. Some people have mindset blocks. And that's what I love about what Bess's work does, is sit down and evaluate that and say, how do we overcome this? I get a hunch, but I don't know how to do it. I kind of know, and this is where I was. I knew there was something I was missing inside of direct sales. And here was my problem. I was able to recruit a lot of people, but I was having a problem building depth. And I would sit and work with a person who didn't want to work, who didn't want to do this, and I would sit with them forever, and I was missing out on this huge opportunity to work with everybody else. And finally, my mentor said, some people will never be ready. Some people will never be ready. They'll sit and evaluate this for a decade. He goes, there's people who have been sitting inside of direct sales companies for 40 years evaluating whether they're going to get started or not, trying to make decisions whether they're going to do this, trying to make decisions on how to do this. They show up to the meeting, and one day they're like, oh, I'm going to say it this way. And the next week they're going to say, oh, but I'm going to say it that way. And the next week they're going to change their mind again and again and again and again. He's like, they will never make a decision. He goes, but you're waiting on that. He's like, what you want to do is you want to find people, and I heard this another way, you want to find people who are at noon. They're thinking about doing it. They're ready to do it. They're willing to do it right now. They're actually ready, and they're willing to follow instructions. Some people are never willing to follow instructions. Some people are never willing to get going, and that's okay. We love them. That's what the majority of the business is actually made up of, people who are in the decision-making process. They're not ready to go right now. So what you want to do is you want to work with people who are ready right now. That's what I had to do. It says, some people believe you have to be in the right place at the right time. Almost every time a leader says, I'm in the right place at the right time, You know, that's part of leadership, is they just figure out how to be in the right place at the right time with the right people, and then find the right people. Isn't it funny that leaders, no matter what company they go into, they always find the right people? They always find somebody who's willing to go now. They always find somebody who's willing to work. They always find somebody. Here's why: because once you develop some of these things, not only the law of the lid, because you know who you're looking for, but the law of magnetism, you know who you're going to attract. And you start attracting the people. If you're ready right now, if you get in and you can go, then you attract people who can get in and go. You know, but if you get in and you attract people who it takes you 10 years to kind of figure this out, you're going to attract people who are about half that fast. So you'll take off in about 20, 25 years. So what I can say is either you can improve your level of leadership, you can grow and change and start, you know, making decisions quicker and making evaluations quicker and getting this going. Or what you can do is you can wait several decades so the people who are kind of running at half your speed can figure it out and get started. And I say that jokingly, but I also say that absolutely. You know, I've seen that happen to people where they just wait. I have seen people who have waited around for a decade in a company, you know, talking to one person a year, and the law of numbers eventually work out for that person. They hit that one person and their group takes off. It's only in one team, but all of a sudden they have this huge explosion in their business because somebody talked to somebody, talked to somebody, talked to somebody. And that's what I call the magic of the industry, is if you're around long enough doing the activity, great things can happen for you, but just make sure that you're, you know, you're the age where you can enjoy them. That's important. The difference is intuition, which is being at the right place at the right time, again, with the right awareness, being able to evaluate what's going on and saying, what is best for everybody? What is best for right now? What is the best technique to use with this person because of the situation that was brought up? With that, I'm going to turn this back over to Bess for some thoughts.
Thanks, Jeff. All those reasons are exactly why we're doing this class at lunchtime, leadership shows, when we teach our Sunday night skills class, because we want to help you to get there faster, easier, better, farther, shortcut that learning curve for you. So yeah, why not? Why not help you and the next people to make the road easier? I wanted to say hi to Max, Denise, Joy, Lori, Janice, Chris, Jesse, Lori, Benny, Adrian, Thomas, and Rosemary Howell. I haven't seen you around for a long time. So glad to see you. Delighted that you're here. So I told you that I would tell you about how to develop that intuition. Some people seem to come easy to them, but it can always be developed. And the main key is to listen. That's the biggest word and key that I could give right now, is listen to a nudge, to a thought that pops in. And it might seem like it wasn't from your own efforts or from your own mind. It seemed like it just popped in, something from beyond you, a kind of effortless effort. And pay attention to those nudges, and pay attention when it does work out and you call somebody and go, man, I was just thinking about you. Man, that's just what I needed to hear today. When you hear that, notice how you felt just before that. You know, maybe it was a clarity that came to you, or a strong urge or an impulse, or that person just popped into your head and you thought, oh, I must call them. You know, how did that happen? How did that feel? So one of my best techniques is to ask, you know, how can I help this person? Who do I need to help today? Who needs my help today? Who needs me to call them today? And then listen and be open. Keep your heart open, keep your mind open, be positive for this to come in. Again, this is not from our head. It's from something greater and beyond ourselves. So today, this morning, I woke up a little early and I just got this nudge. I think I'll pick up this book, you know, that I had near me called Inner Guidance. I thought that's the closest book that I have about intuitions, by Ann Archer Butcher. And I turned to the chapter. The next one that I had marked to read was just exactly about this. She's a high school teacher, 21 years old, and she's going in for the first time teaching classes. And she writes these, it's English class, she writes these inspirational quotes on the board. And then the students discuss it real animated, and they're happy, and it improves their life and gives them cool things to think about. So one day she's there and has a quote prepared, but it's almost like her hand and the chalk, this is a true story, the chalk in her hand took sort of a life of its own, and she started writing stuff that she never seen before. And she thought, what in the world is going on? You know, is this weird? Is this okay? But then it turned out the students loved the quote, and they had a huge animated discussion. And she thought, this is very, very weird. I don't understand this. But it was a good quote, you know. And okay, so that class ended. Next class came in, same thing happened. And so this would happen all day, hour after hour, class after class, and day after day till it started happening all the time. And one day, one of the students stopped by her desk and they said, we know what you're doing. And she says, what? You know, because she was a little scared about this process, but it felt right, you know, let it happen. And he said, well, a few of us have talked, and I started noticing and talking with the other students, and we noticed that we might come to class with a question, and you write down the exact answer or exact quote to help us answer that need. Whether it's me or a bunch of us or a collective question that we kind of agree on, then the quote even gets more specific and addresses that. And she was just like blown away. This was her. How could she have done that, right? It's a bigger spiritual principle, and she talks about a bunch of stories in the book about how her inner guidance came through like this. So I think the key for me in that is saying, because every day before she went into class, she would say, how can I help these students? That was her question that she went in with. So that's a great question to ask. And then you too might have the experience, like a friend of mine, she Facebook messaged me, a Facebook Messenger, and she sent me a quote that was exactly what I was going through, something very big at that time. She could have known that, I mean, mentally. And it was a perfect quote, and I said, thank you. And she said, oh, it's due to her spiritual training. So there's something to that when we ask, how can I be of service today? Who can I help? What can I do? So just to kind of sum up, a leader who uses intuition reads the situation, like Jeff was saying, around you, reads the trends, reads the resources, knows how to leverage them and mobilize people, knows people, reads people, knows their hopes, fears, and concerns, and what special talents they have so they can mobilize and use those talents and recognize people for that. And most of all, they read themselves. They know themselves. And I believe that the more I know myself, the more I can know the next person, because really we're all human. We come with the same ingredients, really. There's different mixes, but basically down to it, knowing myself is the best way to know and help another person. Knowing my own strengths and weaknesses, what are my skills, what are my blind spots, what's my current state of mind. And this is tips from John Maxwell, from his book, The 21 Laws. So let's see, Jeff, was there something here that we want to share? Joyce, can you do me a favor script? Oh, a question. Joyce, can you do me a favor script, which Jeff came up with? Effective using text or message, or do we need to call? I should let Jeff, the creator, answer that one.
Yeah, I think both. Yes, you can call, but it's a great thing to actually text. In fact, what I teach people is text 10 people that, hey, can you do me a huge favor, and see how they respond back. You'd be amazed. People are like, yeah, what's up? What's going on? Sure. What can I do for you? You could send that to 10 people on your Facebook Messenger that you know. If you're asking random people, you're going to get a lot of interesting information back. Talk about intuition. Intuitively, you probably know that you'll get a lot of weird things back. So with people I think it's great to use text messages or Facebook Messenger. I just need 15 minutes. We need to talk. When's a good time? That works fantastic. I've done that many, many, many times. Or I need a huge favor. Can you call me at, and then whatever time you're available. If you sent that message to 10 people, your phone's going to start ringing at that time. And you're going to be busy the rest of the night. In one day, you could present to more people than you have in a month, or maybe even a year in some cases. So yes, I think using text message, using instant messenger with the script is actually sometimes even a better way to do it. And it's especially a better way to do it with new people, because then they don't get on the phone and be like, hey, how's your day? I know that I was probably sort of kind of supposed to, and I got into something, and I'm supposed to just read the script, but I'm so excited about what I did. I can't believe that I did it. I took out a loan, and I borrowed money from my friend, and I just signed up, and I got the biggest package, and they have this level as a diamond, and they have a trip to Tennessee, and there's another trip to the Philippines, and I just can't wait till I get it. And they run on and on and on and on and on. And then eventually they're like, yes, I used the script. Yeah, but you're on the phone for 2.5 hours. The script takes 10 seconds. So again, evaluating what's going on. Yes, the script is amazing. Text message, instant message, sometimes it's better because then there's less words coming out of a new person's mouth, less confusion. Get right to the point. So here's something interesting. You want to use intuition. Sometimes you can use intuition to see things that are coming. A friend of mine actually shared this with me who has a bigger perspective than I do. He actually has seen 2 downturns inside of the mortgage real estate industry. He's been in the business for over 30 years. And he says, he's like, think about this. In 1978, 79, what happened? I was like, well, that was the oil embargo, right? He's like, exactly. The oil embargo happened. What happened to the economy during that time? I was like, well, it pretty much slowed down to an absolute halt. And like interest rates went from, 8% to 10% to 12 to 14 to 16 to 18. They go all the way up to 21% by 1980. He's like, okay, what happened then 10 years later in 1987? I was like, well, 1987, I was like, Black Tuesday. He's like, exactly. The economy crashed again. 20% of the market was wiped out just like that. The Dow, 500-point turn down, 500-point disappearance overnight. There were companies that had been in business for 100 years just vanished. He's like, take that all the way to, 1987, 1997, 1998. What happened? I was like, well, in 97, 98, that would have been .com, .bomb. The .com industry crashed completely. I mean, it just got wiped out. Thousands of companies, thousands of people who were employed just became unemployed. And, we had to turn things around again. Everybody who was around remembers Y2K. Remember, all your computers were supposed to shut down and it was on TV every night. Oh my gosh, it's scary, it's scary, it's scary. Everything's going to crash. Hospitals aren't going to work, and, the telephone system isn't going to work. And if you go to work, work's probably not going to be there. In fact, you're going to wake up, the earth is going to be gone. I mean, it's all fear tactics. And what happened? We woke up the next day and somebody's like, hey, if we change this from 99 to 0, everything's cool. And some programmers are like, okay, cool, move on. 10 years later, 2007, 2008, what happened? The real estate, the mortgage, shut down. All of a sudden, an entire industry seems to blow up. So what my friend says is look at the trend: 78, 87, 97, 07. He's like, look at where we sit right now. He's like, you want to be intuitive and start putting away for a rainy day. I've put out several times, dig your well before you need the water. Dig your well before you need the water. The time to do something was actually yesterday. If you didn't start yesterday, the next best time to start is probably right now. In fact, the only choice you have is either to start right now or start when something bad starts to happen. Don't wait. If you look at animals, because I went through and I just watched this cool thing on the ants. It was all about ants building and kind of the community that they're able to build and the town that they're built. Understand, ants don't take a day off. Ants don't sit around and vacation for months or years. They're always working to provide bigger and better for the future, bigger and better for the next generation, bigger and better for the community. And all I can do is throw this out and say, get to work now. Dig your well before you need your water now. So you don't have to be talking about the next turn down. Say, hey, look, I heard, I prepared, this happened. It really didn't even affect me. Understand, there were certain people who saw 87, who saw 97, and in 07, they were prepared and it didn't hurt them at all. In fact, there were certain people that actually grew in real estate, that grew in the mortgage business, that grew in the industry during that time because they were sitting and prepared. I have a really good friend that he made more money in 2007, 8, 9, and 10 than he ever had in his life because he was prepared during that time. And when everything crashed, he actually went straight up because there was nobody in his way, no competition. So with that being said, I'm going to turn this back over to Bess for any closing thoughts, and we're going to get out of here and get to work.
Yes, I have to interject this. For those of you that favor script blew by and you wondered what that was, it's really, really, really cool. So you might want to take out a paper and pen or rewind this and watch it later. But if I may share that, it's, hey, can I ask you a favor? I'd love to let you know what I'm doing in case you run across the right person. You can refer them to me. Is this a good time to talk? So Jeff has personally recruited over 500 people frontline and built teams of over 10, how many thousand? I forget. How many thousands of done $10 million worth of volume in sales. And did I have that right, Jeff?
Yeah, so it's 2 teams over 5,000 people, and then we've done over 10 million in sales in just 1 team, so it's gone well.
Thank you. So by doing this and by experience, he's come up with the script, and that's what really grabbed my attention one night when we were talking late and long. I thought, oh my goodness, this is gold. This is gold. I'm committed to teaching this best to my students in my school, so I must teach this and the method that goes with it. So it's, hey, can I ask you a favor? I'd like to show you what I'm doing in case you run across the right person. You can refer them to me. Is this a good time? So this is friends and family, people that you know, and you text this like to 10 people and then follow up, because the average is that 1 or 2 of those people are going to become customers and distributors if you follow up properly. But people text back and it never gets a no. It always gets a yes, either now, later, maybe, or when. But it's important to follow up the right way, like Jeff was mentioning. And so you follow up with a verbal 10-minute presentation, not a video to start off. That can validate you later, but you start out with a 10-minute presentation that includes your story, very specific and focused, of the need that you have, what the product did for you, about the company, why you decided to join, how you got your started money back, or first few $100s, and why this is good timing. And we've actually put this into a book called Always Get a Yes. You can find that book at mlmmillionaireclub.com/yes. mlmmillionaireclub.com/yes. It is $17, comes with bonuses, and look at pages 5 to 12 because this contains all the directions there. We also teach this in very, very good Sunday night classes, 9 p.m. Eastern time, called the 10 Core Commitments, that includes this script and how to get people started right and how to do your 10-minute presentation right, how to do all this, and so much more. And it's only $25 a month and includes the book. So if you want that, that is mlmmillionaireclub.com/basics. mlmmillionaireclub.com/basics. You may want to rewind this section of the video to catch these really good gems. This, I think, can turn your business around. It's just very, very powerful, especially if you apply it to do at least 2 presentations a day. But this makes it easy and simple. So I just had to interject that. Thank you. And Chris says, how do you prepare? How do you prepare what? To do the presentation? The directions are in the book, but could you say more specifically to prepare what, Chris?
I think he's just talking about how do you prepare overall for a turn down, for a crash. Here's the thing. Do what's uncomfortable now, so that way later you don't have to do. Meaning, if you're putting away money and you're putting away building a business right now when you're like, man, I have more than I need. That way, if you have more than you need when it's good, think about, when it turns bad and you have more than you need. Not only are you okay, but you're able to help other people. You're not focused on survival. You're focused on how you can help other people. It's amazing when you put away. They say put away for a rainy day, put away for a downturn. The economy goes up and down. Markets go up and down. You just want to be prepared and have things put away. What happens is during, and I can't remember who said it exactly, but during times when the economy is great, people tend to relax, vacation, and just hang out. That's the time when you're actually going to work the hardest. Why are you going to work the hardest when everybody else is relaxing and taking, time off? It's because that's the time you can get so far ahead. So when the downturn comes, you can relax when everybody else is freaking out. So I hope that helps, guys. We're going to wrap this up because we are past time. We try to keep this, like I said, to 30 to 45 minutes. So appreciate everybody jumping on. Like, share, comment. We appreciate you guys. Hope you got something out of this, and we'll talk real soon. If you have any direct questions, you can obviously instant message either one of us or come on to the MLM Lunchtime Leadership Show page on Facebook and ask your question, and we'll get back to you. If not directly, we can actually bring it to this event. So we appreciate it. Thank you so much. See you guys.